The lunchbox in my hands wasn't just food, it was a silent weapon. In that moment, I realized one bite could have killed my only son. I'll never forget the way my hands shook as I almost opened it. It began so ordinary. At 68, my life had narrowed into little rituals: watering my roses, reading the newspaper with black coffee, and once a week visiting Daniel, my boy, at his office. He was 35 now, a man with tired eyes but a heart that still carried too much kindness for this cruel world. That afternoon, I walked into his office with a small lunchbox Rachel had asked me to drop off. He forgot it on the counter again, she'd said with a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. Rachel, my daughter-in-law. Sharp, ambitious, always calculating. There was something in her voice that unsettled me, but I brushed it off. After all, wasn't she the one caring for him day to day? I placed the box on Daniel's desk, kissed his cheek, and left. He had a meeting, so I thought I'd just wait downstairs in the lobby, maybe even sneak a peek at what Rachel had prepared. The scent of roasted chicken and herbs teased me. I smiled, thinking of the sacrifices I'd made all my life just to see my son fed, safe, and happy. I snapped open the lid, and that's when Mark, an old colleague of mine from years back, rushed over. His face turned pale as he slapped the box from my hands. Food scattered across the tiles, and the lobby fell into shocked silence. "Linda!" he shouted, breathless. "Don't let Daniel eat that." "Don't you dare." The entire building froze, staring at us. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Mark, what on earth are you talking about?" He knelt, sniffed the food, then looked at me with eyes full of dread. I was a doctor before I worked in management. I know this smell. Something's wrong. Take Daniel to the hospital. Now his words pierced through me like cold steel. That was the moment my ordinary day shattered. Before I take you deeper into this storm, let me pause here. Before we dive into today's dramatic story, make sure you subscribe to Silent Tear Stories and turn on the notification bell. Here you'll always find tales of sacrifice, betrayal, and unexpected twists. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. Perhaps the next story will echo your own experiences. I wish I could say I ignored him, that I laughed it off as paranoia. But something in Rachel's smile that morning replayed in my mind, like a shadow behind her lips, a smile too stiff, too rehearsed. I grabbed my phone with shaking fingers and called Daniel. "Don't eat the lunch," I blurted the moment he answered. "Please, Daniel. Just don't." He chuckled, confused. "Mom, it's just chicken." Rachel made it herself. "Promise me," I snapped, louder than I intended. "Promise me you won't touch it." There was a pause, then his sigh. "All right." I promise. I hung up, hands clammy, lungs tight. Around me, whispers spread like wildfire in the lobby. People glanced at me with suspicion, curiosity, pity, but I couldn't care less. Something inside me whispered, "This is not a mistake. This is a warning." That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling fan as it sliced the darkness into dizzying fragments. My mind kept replaying every encounter with Rachel, the subtle remarks, the way she spoke about Daniel's job, his salary, the inheritance he'd someday receive from me. Once, over dinner, she had leaned toward me and said with a sweet smile, "Daniel works so hard. If anything ever happened to him, I know he'd want me to be secure. Right, Mom?" At the time, I had laughed it off, but now the memory turned sour, crawling beneath my skin. I thought of the will tucked away in my desk drawer. I had written it after my husband passed, ensuring Daniel would inherit everything: the house, the savings, the small vineyard we had poured our souls into. By law, Rachel would share it if he died first, and suddenly, every puzzle piece fell into place. My throat burned. Could it be? Could the woman he loved, his wife, be plotting something so vile? I wanted to scream, but instead I closed my eyes and whispered to the empty room. "If you are truly trying to hurt my son, Rachel, You've chosen the wrong mother to challenge. The next morning, Daniel looked tired when he visited me. His kind eyes avoided mine as he placed a hand over mine at the kitchen table. Mom, Rachel thinks you don't trust her. She was upset that you panicked yesterday. Upset? My son could have been poisoned and she was upset? My blood boiled, but I swallowed it down. I couldn't accuse her yet, not without proof. So I asked Daniel the simplest of questions. How have you been feeling lately? Any headaches? Stomach pains? He blinked, startled. Actually, yeah. Nausea, fatigue, but I thought it was just stress. My chest tightened. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was real. Daniel, I whispered, forcing calm into my voice. We're going to see a doctor. Today he frowned, shaking his head. Mom, don't overreact. Rachel already scheduled a checkup for next week. No, I cut in, sharper than I meant. Not next week. Now the silence between us was heavy, suffocating. For the first time, I saw doubt flicker in his eyes. He nodded slowly. All right, if it'll make you feel better. But in my heart, I knew. This wasn't about me feeling better. This was about saving his life. I could already feel the storm building, and deep down, a question gnawed at me, one I didn't dare say aloud yet. If Rachel was willing to play with Daniel's health, what else was she capable of? If you were in my place, would you confront Rachel right away or stay quiet until you had proof? Tell me in the comments. Many women here may have faced a similar silence inside their homes. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and quiet dread. Daniel sat on the bed, his face pale beneath the harsh fluorescent lights. Dr. James Carter adjusted his glasses, flipping through the lab results with a crease deepening across his forehead. When he finally spoke, his words carved through the room like a blade. Mr. Walker, he said, your blood work shows traces of arsenic. Arsenic. The syllables thudded in my ears. My breath caught. I glanced at Daniel, expecting panic, but he only frowned in confusion, his innocence shielding him from the horror of it. Dr. Carter continued carefully. This isn't accidental exposure. These levels suggest small, consistent doses over time. Daniel blinked, then laughed weakly. Arsenic? Come on, that's impossible. We don't live near any factories or old wells. How would I even... The doctor interrupted gently. Food is the most common source in cases like this. I felt my heart collapse inside my chest. Food, Rachel's cooking, the lunchboxes. I whispered, Dear God. Daniel turned toward me, his face pale. Mom, no. Don't say it. Rachel would never. But the truth had already begun its cruel march across both our minds. That evening, Rachel stormed into my house. Her heels clattered against the hardwood floor, echoing like gunshots in my living room. How dare you, she hissed, slamming her purse onto the table. You dragged Daniel to a hospital, made him believe he's dying, and now you're spreading lies about me? Her voice was sweet venom, dripping with fury. I forced myself to remain calm, even as my hands trembled. Rachel, the doctor found poison in his blood. This isn't imagination. This is science. Her eyes flashed. And you think I did that? Do you even hear yourself? He's my husband. I love him. I leaned forward, lowering my voice so Daniel, hovering uncertainly in the hallway, couldn't hear. Love doesn't put arsenic in a man's veins. Rachel's face twisted just for a moment before she masked it with a sob. She pressed her palms to her eyes. This is what you want, isn't it? To turn Daniel against me. You've hated me since the day we married her. Theatrics might have fooled an outsider, but not me. I had spent decades raising a family, surviving betrayal, and navigating the subtle wars of marriage. I knew the difference between grief and performance. Still, Daniel stepped in, voice cracking. Enough! Both of you, I can't do this right now. He pressed his temples, as though the room itself was crushing him, and just like that, Rachel had won this round. Over the next weeks, the conflict seeped into every corner of our lives. Rachel made sure to whisper poisonous words in Daniel's ear when I wasn't around. I overheard fragments. She thinks I'm after money, your own mother. She'll never accept me. She wants me gone. At dinner one evening, she looked directly at me across the table, her smile sharp as a knife. "Daniel, darling, don't you think your mom is getting forgetful? Maybe all this stress is just her imagination." I clenched my fork so tightly it nearly bent, but the cruelest moment came a few days later when I found them in the living room. Daniel looked exhausted, his shoulders slumped. Rachel was holding his hand, her eyes glistening with fake tears. "If anything happens to me," Daniel murmured, "promise me you'll take care of Mom." "She has no one else," Rachel stroked his arm, her lips curving. "Of course, love. But you don't have to worry. I'll always protect her, as long as she doesn't keep attacking me." The hidden threat in her words chilled me. Late one night, I found Daniel asleep on the couch. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. I shouldn't have looked, but something inside me compelled me to pick it up. And there it was. A message from Rachel to a number saved only as unknown. "We need to act before she changes the will. If Daniel finds out, it's over." My knees nearly gave out. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was proof. I wanted to run to the police that very moment, but I stopped myself. Evidence this fragile could disappear with a single deleted text. I needed something stronger, something undeniable. So I saved the screenshot, tucked it into my hidden folder, and whispered to myself, "Patience, Linda. You've survived storms before. You'll survive this one too." But Rachel wasn't finished. A few days later, she cornered me in my garden, her smile icy beneath the summer sun. "Listen to me, old woman," she whispered, her voice laced with steel. "You stay out of our marriage. You keep your mouth shut, or I swear, Daniel won't be the one to suffer. You will." Her words hit harder than any slap. For a moment, the roses around us blurred, their red petals mocking me with silent screams. I stared her down, my heart pounding. "You're playing a dangerous game, Rachel." "And you will lose?" She laughed softly. "We'll see." That night, I sat alone in the dark, clutching a photograph of my late husband. Tears blurred his smiling face. "You'd know what to do," I whispered. "You'd protect him." "Tell me how, John. Tell me how to save our boy." But only silence answered. Silence, and the slow, steady rise of a fire inside me. I was done being afraid. Rachel thought she was clever, that she could play with lives and twist love into a weapon, but she had underestimated me, because I wasn't just a mother, I was a survivor, and I was ready to fight back. Tell me, have you ever felt powerless in your own family, like your voice was being silenced? If you were me, would you go to the police immediately or wait to collect more evidence? Share your thoughts below. I didn't sleep that night. My body was weary, but my mind sharpened with every hour that passed. By dawn, I knew exactly what I had to do. If Rachel was poisoning my son, then I needed more than suspicion, more than whispers. I needed the kind of evidence no court, no husband blinded by love could deny. So I picked up the phone and made 3 calls. The first was to Dr. James Carter. His voice was calm but urgent as he promised to re-examine Daniel's tests, this time documenting everything in a sealed chain of custody. "If this is deliberate," he said gravely, "we'll catch it." The second was to Robert Hayes, our family lawyer. Robert had guided me through my husband's estate after his death. He was sharp, methodical, and more importantly, someone I trusted. When I told him what I suspected, he didn't laugh. He didn't tell me I was paranoid. He simply said, "Linda, I need you to gather every piece of paper Rachel has touched. Insurance policies, bank transfers, your will, everything. If she's planning something, there will be a trail, and the third call, that one was the hardest. Detective Sarah Collins, the woman's firm voice answered. I hesitated, clutching the phone so tightly it hurt. Detective, this is Linda Walker. I need to report an attempted murder. My daughter-in-law is poisoning my son. The silence on the other end stretched long enough for my heart to falter. But then Collins spoke. Mrs. Walker, I can't open an official case without evidence. But if you work with us quietly, we can build one together. Her words were a lifeline. For the first time in weeks, I felt I wasn't standing alone against the storm. The plan began slowly, quietly, like the first chords of a haunting song. Dr. Carter supplied me with small testing kits. Every meal Rachel prepared for Daniel, I would take a sample and seal it. My hands shook the first time I scraped leftovers into the container, terrified Rachel would catch me. But she was too busy smiling sweetly at Daniel, pretending to be the devoted wife. Meanwhile, Robert dug into Rachel's financials. He discovered something chilling. Just 2 months prior, Rachel had secretly applied for a massive life insurance policy on Daniel, a policy that listed her as the sole beneficiary. Linda? Robert said gravely over the phone. If Daniel dies, she walks away with nearly $2 million. That's motive enough to destroy any family. My chest tightened. Money, always money. Was that all my son's life was worth to her? Detective Collins arranged for Daniel's home to be discreetly monitored. She warned me, if Rachel suspects we're watching, she might accelerate her plans. You must act as if nothing's wrong. Acting as if nothing was wrong became my cruelest performance. At dinners, I forced smiles as Rachel poured wine into Daniel's glass. I made small talk while secretly palming a swab to collect residue. I even thanked her for taking such good care of him, my words tasting like ash. But the hardest part was Daniel himself. Mom, he said one evening when Rachel had gone to answer a phone call, you've been different lately. Suspicious. It's like you don't trust her. I looked at his tired, loving face, the same face I had cradled as a newborn, and wanted to scream the truth, but I couldn't risk it. Not yet. So I just squeezed his hand and whispered, "Trust me, Daniel. Please, just trust me." Weeks passed, each day heavier than the last. Then one afternoon, Dr. Carter called me into his office. His expression was grave, but his words were the confirmation I had been both dreading and praying for. The samples you collected, he said, laying out the reports. Every single one contained arsenic, small doses but enough to accumulate dangerously in Daniel's body. I closed my eyes, my chest heaving. Proof. Finally, undeniable proof. "Do you want me to tell him?" Dr. Carter asked gently. I shook my head. "Not yet. If we confront her now, she'll deny it, destroy evidence, maybe even vanish. We need her caught in the act. It was the hardest choice of my life, keeping the truth from my son to save him." That night, I met with Robert and Detective Collins in my kitchen. The three of us huddled like conspirators, though all we sought was justice. Collins spread photographs on the table, images from a hidden camera installed in Daniel's dining room. My stomach churned as I saw Rachel's slender hand sprinkling white powder into his soup, her face expressionless, as though she were folding laundry. "We'll need one final confirmation," Collins explained. "A sting operation, but it has to look real. Daniel must not know. If he suspects, his reaction could ruin everything." Robert leaned back, arms crossed. "Linda, are you ready for what this means? If we go through with this, Rachel will be exposed in front of everyone. The fallout will be devastating." I met his gaze without flinching. "She tried to kill my son. She doesn't deserve secrecy. She deserves truth." The turning point came quietly, almost tenderly. One evening, Daniel dozed on the couch, his breathing shallow, his skin pale. I tucked a blanket around him, brushing his hair like I used to when he was a boy, and I whispered, "Hold on, my son. Just a little longer. Soon the world will see her for what she is." My reflection in the dark window startled me. My eyes no longer looked afraid. They looked resolute. For the first time in this nightmare, I realized I wasn't a victim of Rachel's cruelty. I was the one holding the torch of truth, and I was ready to set fire to her lies. If you were in Linda's place, would you tell Daniel the truth right away or wait until the trap was set? Sometimes silence is the only way to protect, but it comes at a heavy price. What would you choose? The night of the sting arrived like a storm waiting on the horizon. Detective Collins had planned every detail, hidden cameras, microphones, even officers waiting just outside the Walker residence. Dr. Carter was on standby at the hospital, while Robert Hayes ensured that the legal framework was ironclad. All that was missing was the performance. And Daniel, my sweet Daniel, would unknowingly become the lead actor in the play that would save his life. Dinner began in silence. Rachel had prepared her signature creamy soup, ladling it into Daniel's bowl with her usual smile. My stomach knotted as I watched her reach into her apron pocket, her movements so casual one might mistake them for love. But I knew better. I forced myself to remain calm, to keep my hands steady as I lifted my spoon. Every nerve in my body screamed, "Now! This is it." Rachel's hand hovered over Daniel's bowl, sprinkling the faintest dusting of white powder across the surface of the soup. Her face remained serene, almost angelic, and then Daniel lifted his spoon. The room seemed to collapse into silence, each second stretching like eternity. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. "Daniel!" I shouted, slamming my hand against the table. The spoon clattered from his grasp. He startled, staring at me in confusion. "Mom, what on earth?" Rachel's smile faltered. Just for a moment, her mask slipped. That was when Detective Collins and 2 officers entered through the side door, badges flashing. "Rachel Walker," Collins declared, her voice sharp as steel. "Step away from the table. You're under investigation for attempted murder." The color drained from Rachel's face. "What? This is insane." She turned to Daniel, her voice desperate. "Honey, they're lying. She's doing this. Your mother's trying to destroy us." But Collins calmly placed a small device on the table. A screen flickered to life, displaying the hidden camera footage from the past week. And there it was, Rachel, caught on film, sprinkling arsenic into Daniel's meals. Over and over again, the evidence undeniable. Daniel's face crumpled as he watched, his breath ragged. "Rachel, no, tell me this isn't real." Rachel's eyes darted wildly. She tried to compose herself, but the panic bled through. It's not what it looks like. I was adding seasoning." Collins interrupted, pressing play on another recording. Rachel whispering into her phone, "We need to act before she changes the will. If Daniel finds out, it's over." The words hung in the air like poison. Daniel's spoon fell from his trembling hand. He staggered back, his face twisted with betrayal. "You were going to kill me." "For money," Rachel's voice cracked. "I did it for us. Don't you see? Your mother would never give us freedom. She's kept you on a leash with her money, her house, her vineyard. I just wanted... What?" I cut in, my voice rising with decades of suppressed fury. "His life? His blood? All so you could count dollars in a bank account? You call that love?" The words burst from me like fire. For years I had stayed silent, swallowed disrespect, endured Rachel's sneers. But tonight, in front of Daniel, in front of the law, my voice rose like a tide that could no longer be held back. "This villa? This vineyard? This family? None of it was yours to take. And now, you're trespassing in more ways than one." The officers stepped forward, slipping handcuffs onto Rachel's wrists. She struggled, shrieking. "No, this isn't happening. Daniel, tell them. Tell them I'm your wife." Daniel's eyes brimmed with tears, but his voice was steady. "You were my wife. Now you're just a stranger who tried to murder me." Rachel froze, her body stiff as if his words had struck her harder than the cuffs ever could. For the first time, she looked small, powerless, exposed. They escorted her from the house, her screams echoing into the night. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains. Whispers filled the air, the scandal spreading faster than wildfire. Inside, silence remained. Daniel sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. I reached for him, pulling him close, the way I had when he was a boy afraid of storms. He whispered brokenly, "How could I not see it, Mom? How did I let her into my life?" I stroked his hair, my tears falling onto his shoulders. "Because you loved her. And love blinds us to darkness sometimes. But remember this, her betrayal doesn't define your worth. It only reveals hers." Later that night, Dr. Carter confirmed the soup contained arsenic. The evidence was overwhelming. Rachel was booked, her bail denied, her future shackled by her own greed. But the most haunting moment came at the hospital, when she was briefly left alone in a guarded room. Detective Collins played us a final recording. Rachel, muttering under her breath, unaware of the hidden microphone. "I never loved him. I only loved the money. And if that old woman had just died already, none of this would have been necessary." The words sent a chill through my spine. For Daniel, it was the death of illusion. His face hardened, the boyish kindness giving way to something forged in fire. "She's gone from my life," he said simply. And in that moment, I knew the balance of power had shifted. Rachel thought she had written the final act of our family. But it was me, the woman she underestimated, who had the last word. If you were Daniel, hearing your spouse confess such cruelty, how would you react? Could you ever forgive? Or is betrayal like this unforgivable? The days after Rachel's arrest felt like waking from a fever dream. The house was quieter, almost too quiet, as if even the walls needed time to breathe again. Daniel stayed with me during his recovery. Dr. Carter supervised every step of his detox, flushing the poison from his blood. With each day, his skin grew warmer, his laughter returned in flickers, and the shadows beneath his eyes faded. But the wounds inside him, those would take longer. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the vineyard, painting the fields gold, Daniel stood beside me on the porch. His voice was low, almost broken. "Mom," he said, "I don't know who I am without her. I loved her, and now all I feel is empty." I placed a hand on his shoulder, feeling the weight he carried. "You are more than her betrayal, Daniel. You are the boy who stayed up all night helping your father harvest grapes in the rain, the man who takes care of his co-workers when they're sick. You are everything she wasn't." He nodded, though tears welled in his eyes. And in that fragile silence, I realized something. Betrayal doesn't just steal trust. It steals identity. And healing means reclaiming both. Rachel's trial drew crowds. Reporters scribbled furiously as the evidence stacked high. The recordings, the lab reports, the insurance policy. And when the footage of her sprinkling poison played on the courtroom screen, a collective gasp filled the air. She sat stiffly at the defense table, her beauty dulled, her arrogance stripped bare. Her lawyer argued desperation, mental stress, even claimed I had manipulated her. But when the prosecution played her whispered confession, "I never loved him. I only loved the money," the room fell into stunned silence. The jury's decision was swift. Guilty on all counts. Rachel was sentenced to 25 years in prison without parole. For many, that might have been the end. Justice served. Curtain closed. But for me, it was only part of the story. Because true justice isn't just about punishment, it's about rebuilding what was nearly destroyed. I decided to revise my will, not because of fear, but because of clarity. I sat with Robert Hayes, my lawyer, and rewrote every clause. No one, I told him firmly, should ever use my estate as a weapon. Daniel will inherit, but it will be safeguarded. If he marries again, it stays in trust until he's ready. Love should never be measured in dollars. Robert nodded, his pen scratching across the paper. Wise choice, Linda. You've seen firsthand what unchecked greed can do. When the documents were signed, I felt lighter, as though, for the first time in years, I had drawn a clear boundary around my family's future. Life began to settle. I found myself returning to small joys, kneading bread, pruning roses, watching old movies late into the night. One Sunday, Daniel joined me in the kitchen. He rolled up his sleeves, clumsy with flour, laughing as dough stuck to his hands. I don't know what's next for me, he admitted, but I know I won't waste this second chance. I smiled, brushing flour across his cheek like when he was a boy. That's all I ask, son. Don't let bitterness steal your heart. Let it make you stronger. He looked at me then, truly looked, and whispered, I don't think I ever realized how strong you are, Mom. My eyes blurred with tears. Strength isn't loud, Daniel. Sometimes it's just refusing to break, even when the world tries to bend you. Weeks later, as I walked through the vineyard at dusk, a neighbor stopped me. Linda, she said gently, we all heard about what happened. You must feel cursed having such betrayal in your own family. I paused, then shook my head. Not cursed. Tested. And I've learned that respect isn't given by blood. It's earned through love and kindness. Her eyes softened. That's a lesson we could all stand to remember. I watched the sun sink into the earth, the vines glowing in the last light, and I felt a strange peace settle in my chest. Rachel had tried to poison my family with greed and deceit, but in the end, all she revealed was her own emptiness. What remained, what always remained, was love. I share this story with you not just as a warning, but as a reminder. Have you ever faced betrayal in your own family? Have you ever seen someone you love blinded by trust, only to discover the truth too late? If so, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments. Someone here may need to hear it, because here in this community, every story is a reminder that none of us suffer in silence. We rise together, we speak truth, and we protect the ones we love. And remember, justice may come late, but it always comes. If this story touched you, leave a comment or even a message to yourself, something you want to remember the next time life tests your strength. And don't forget to subscribe to Silent Tear Stories for more tales of sacrifice, betrayal, and those unforgettable twists that remind us of the power of truth.